Hello, welcome. So today I just wanted to share something I was reflecting upon as I continue, and I guess this is me initiating, wanting to kind of explore ways that um, we can grow the Afro hair in a way that doesn't require so much energy. It's efficient, requires like minimal but useful resources and tools that you can use to then grow your hair. And an idea that came to me, and I think because I've been encountering it from like other platforms, is creating systems for Afro hair growth. And this I had actually encountered it with authors like James Clear in Atomic Habit, where if, for example, you want to become fit, don't just focus on like the weight or the fat that you're losing, um, but focus on the input to get to where you want to go. So in this case, that would be kind of moving as much as you can throughout the day, um, and kind of let that be like your guiding light than just focusing on kind of measuring the fat loss at the end of like a week or a month, because that's useful. But if the focus is on that and you're not really doing the front end, then it doesn't lead to like the result that you want. And I think the same could be said for growing the hair, because every year or like often we set goals for like growing the hair to the waistline, to the neck, to the back, so on and so forth. But I think when we kind of watch videos of others, I think the focus is on like the observation, and sometimes I think they're like overarching ideas that are presented in terms of how to get it. But I think the challenge is in the daily struggles of actually making that work. And I think that has to be talked about. And I think what needs to talk about is the systems that you can implement to then help you kind of work towards reaching the hair length and maybe increasing thickness in terms of like the resurrecting follicles you have, or shorter hairs that with attention would grow to a point that you want it to be. And so I think one thing we can think about in terms of creating, like looking at the input, is creating a system of routine. Like how often you plan to wash your hair and kind of detangle and like braid it. I do mine on a bi-weekly basis. And there are others who do theirs on a monthly and even a month plus 2 months basis. There was this lady I think I saw on YouTube, I forgot her name. And she had a brilliant idea of like kind of keeping the hair in for a long time. I think it's a month and a half, 2 months or something like that. And then taking it out, but then it's intentional, where like you allocate a good chunk of time to actually detangling the hair, getting it to a good point. Probably take a whole day, especially if you're using your hand to detangle. But I think there's a tug of war between kind of that level of low manipulation and maintaining it well, and also the effort that it requires to be able to get to like the hair structure or space that would allow for you to continue that. And I think if a person is not intentional, when you leave your hair in for so long, you're like, oh my god, now I have to detangle it, and it's just so draining, especially since our hair are very coiled. And so when we shed hair, the hair doesn't travel down and like fall out, it stays in. And imagine leaving that in for weeks on end, and how that would be difficult. And especially if the hair is not properly maintained with like water and lubrication, things could go south. So for me, I try to stick to bi-weekly, and also the bi-weekly is also because I leave my natural hair out, so I like to have it look presentable. In the same case, you could also break it down again into a daily basis. Like on a daily basis, what do you plan to do to care for your hair? One example would be, for example, for myself, I rinse my hair 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And that would be it. And then I add some form of lubricant at the ends of my hair and on the strands of my hair, and I'm on my way. But these are all actions that I input to kind of see the results at the end, where I try to then have my hair be moisturized, have my hair be lubricated, so the hair strands don't rub against each other and lead to like cause friction and kind of tangle up. And I wash it on a bi-weekly basis. So these are all systems that you could put in place to kind of work towards your goal. And another aspect that I also wanted to talk about is how it helps reduce decision like fatigue, in terms of like every time you have to think about like, oh, when am I going to like take care of my hair, but if there's a structure in place, you're not really thinking about it, especially if you've thought about the structure beforehand and kind of made a decision because that structure works. And I think Caveats would be, if someone is considering this, perhaps considering experimenting like a month or two to kind of figure out like what approach would work for you, and then going out with that, like for example your lifestyle, like for example going to the gym more often will require that perhaps you wash your hair once a week. And for me, when I do that, I wash my hair in braids, and this is something I'll get back to later. Or maybe you have other responsibilities in your life that won't allow you to sit down a whole day to detangle your hair, so perhaps then you want to consider kind of maintain your hair like 2 weeks. I think a shorter time, so there's always a tug of war between manipulation and maintenance. I think a shorter period of time where the hair is not manipulated and then addressed, I think doesn't allow for the hair to have the room to grow. Like for example, how we see people who have braided their hair, and then once they remove it carefully, you're able to see the length retention because there's little manipulation on the hair. So I think perhaps doing like a week might be cutting it very, very close, unless you're very, very mindful in terms of like how you manipulate your hair, which is possible to do. So I think there's a fine like balance between manipulating the hair and maintaining the hair. So that's one. And I think there was something else I had wanted to mention. I'm looking at my notes. Yes, it was kind of pulling an idea from this author called Tara Swart. She has a really good book called The Source. If you've not read it, I think you should go read it. This book has been really helping me kind of work towards my purpose in a way that is intentional and more focused. But yes, so there's the decision fatigue, which can be removed with having a routine and a system in place. And there's an effort fatigue, which I think can be kind of addressed, because I think it's a big deal, especially like having talked to like family and friends who have children who they are growing their Afro hair, or they themselves, and kind of finding it so effortful to just take care of the hair. And I think again, I'm happering. I think if you leave your hair in for a long time, the addressing of it is so tedious that it just doesn't, it's not worth the like potential retention that you could get from leaving your hair too long, because then you are frustrated, you might rip your hair out, or you are still able to do it, but it's just so draining that you wouldn't consider kind of continuing that same routine. So I think it's about finding the balance between kind of a routine that like works, it's not really too draining. And I think a fine point is like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, even weekly if you have the time. But I think weekly is also just like a lot of maintenance that might not be necessary, especially depending on like your lifestyle. So avoiding effort fatigue, I think is preparing beforehand, kind of having all your materials kind of ready to go. You know the dates that you're gonna wash your hair, so like kind of have that. I usually have mine in a basket and I take it to the bathroom. I also think an idea, I think it's also from James Clear, like what is the minimum you can do on your worst day, and having like an idea for that. For example, for me, like I try to do like a morning like workout run, and that is the bare minimum I would do in case I'm not feeling well. And if I'm not really feeling well, I'll just get out and go and walk. So that's the bare minimum. So the same, what is the like a hairstyle you can do in case you don't have time? And mine is doing 3-3, very quick shabu shabu or twist, or maybe you could even do a bun. A bun is not my style, but a bun, you tuck your ends in, it's in, you're good to go. So that's one. Preparation, having all your materials ready in a set location or entity that you can carry around. And also another that has helped me in terms of reducing effort is having a timer. And I think it was said somewhere, I think on some, and it's like kind of a phenomenon where like if you have more time for a task, then the time, like the task will spread to occupy the time in a way that it's not even necessary. So for example, I did this in an hour. It was very quick, and actually the day before I had washed my hair in the braids, and I washed it, added a conditioner, and then added some oil, tied it up with my rubber band, and then I went to sleep. And then today I had enough time, an hour, to address it, and I was able to address it. And it's not the most slick looking, but it works for me. And yeah, I think those are the main things. And the other is, I think if you have your like a decision, you've made a decision to grow your hair, and you then focus your attention on it, I think Tara Swart said, like then your actions and behavior kind of align towards realizing that commitment that you've made, and then it kind of feeds into it. So I think these are some of the things that I would like to share in terms of how to kind of grow the Afro hair in an efficient and kind of thoughtful manner, in a way that I think most, or like some people who share about the hair don't talk about, which is fine because I think they also share like other information that is useful. But I think these are like kind of the intangible but also very critically useful kind of perspective that really is critical for like being on the journey and growing the hair. So I hope that somebody found this useful, and if you have any questions, please share them below, and I guess we can all help ourselves answer. If I don't know, I will let you know. But thank you for sharing your time with me, and have a good rest of your day. Bye bye.